Citizen Kane is often referred to as the greatest film of all time, and Orson Welles is often referred to as the greatest film director of all time. But it's rarely discussed exactly why that is, and exactly what this has to say about the unique position that film was in the early 1940s. You see, the thing is, and I'm going to massively butcher this explanation, so please do some further reading, there were two schools of thought at this period in history about what made film unique as an art form. Look at where video games are today. Constantly a risk of censorship, not truly considered art by a large number of the population. The question that probably comes up the most is, if video games are art, what can they do that other art forms, from plays to paintings to movies, can't do? Being able to answer what makes this a unique form of artistic expression legitimizes the art form in question. And back in the 30s and 40s, movies were facing a lot of the same criticisms that video games are today. One of the most prominent answers to this was the Russian answer, which is, film is about editing. In a play, everything that happens there and then in that moment. You can't edit a play. People can't jump from one side of the stage to the other. You can't create meaning through the juxtaposition of two images across space-time the same way that you can with film. This was known as Russian montage theory, the juxtaposition of images to create meaning. Whilst Eisenstein's probably the most famous theorist in this particular school of thought, the Kuleshov effect is probably the best example of what they were talking about. You show a person's face, you show something else. It could be a dead body, it could be a bowl of soup, it could be an attractive lady. Then you cut back to the person with exactly the same facial expression, and people will read different emotions, say sadness or hunger or lust, just based on the assembly of those images. The other school of thought, however, was the French school of thought, mostly led by André Bazin. What they believed made film unique was film's ability to accurately capture a moment. This idea is intrinsically antithetical to the Russian school of thought. According to film scholar Ian Christie in the BFI's French cinema book, André Bazin thought the Soviet montage school should be considered a deviation from cinema's intrinsically realist mission. Instead, films should play out in long takes, be staged in depth, editing as little as possible, so as to preserve the truth of the moment recorded. So surely there's no way of reconciling these two approaches into one unified filmmaking style. Well, that is where Orson Welles and Citizen Kane come in. Citizen Kane was a film that married these two approaches perfectly. If you were from the French school, you could point to a scene like the one where his mother essentially signs him away and say, look, there's basically two cuts in this entire scene. Everything's staged in depth, and it's true to the moment that was happening then. If you believe the Russian school, however, you could point to the moments that directly follow it. The snow piling up on top of the sled, fading in more and more snow to imply the passage of time. The cutting from Merry Christmas to another moment years and years later, joining the two thematically.
Well, Charles, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
That's very Russian. And the marriage of these two ideas is something that can be traced across the entirety of Orson Welles' career. Look at this scene from Touch of Evil, for example. This plays out largely in this one take, but the one moment that it does cut near the end, it cuts straight after this line.
Shall we drink to that?
I don't. Juanita, 2 more double bourbons. Make them nice and big.
This implies an internal shift within the character, one that's fundamentally also expressed by the new angle itself. Neither of these shots would have as much impact without the other, but similarly, they are holding for such a long time, letting us bask in the truth of this particular moment. It's a perfect marriage of holding long takes like classic French cinema and cutting to imply meaning like Russian cinema. That is why Orson Welles is so beloved of film critics and filmmakers. This is the thing that he did differently that really set him apart from everyone else. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do click the subscribe and the little bell notification thing. I'm sorry about the sudden change in energy levels for this outro because I've gained a cold since recording this video. Yay! There's a bunch of other things in this video that I really want to make full videos on at some point, like Russian montage theory and the Hays Code, which is bonkers and needs its own video. So if you want to see any of those, please do let me know in the comments down below.